In episode 496, Ryan and Jose are joined by Nicholas Vince to catch up, talk about his one-man show, and the documentary I Am Monsters. This is the Clive Barker Podcast, where longtime fans Ryan and Jose interview guests, bring you the news, and take deep dives into Barker-related stuff. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's even a paver at Washington, D.C. representing Celebrate Imagination. We're thrilled that this worthy cause is sponsoring our podcast again this year, and we hope that you'll consider looking over his Pinterest page and commissioning a painting of your own. For commissions, Don requires no money down, and there will be no obligation on your part. You can also head over to the Etsy shop to buy one of his books, like A Chimney Sweep's Tale, Celebrate Imagination, or The Imaginaries. Follow the link in the show notes, or click on the side banner, and let's see what's new with Don Bertram today. Check out Don Bertram's new paintings, The Witness, Night Creatures, and The Nibblers, on his Facebook page. Link in the show notes. If you saw or listened to our last episode with Hans Rueffert, there is a link here in our show notes to help him out with his medical issues. Let's welcome our other sponsor, Ed Martinez, and his YouTube channel. Lots of great special effects videos and Barker-related content. What's the latest from Ed? Ed's found some archival footage of Mad Model Party in 1997, where Yasushi Nirasawa had his models, and Clive was introduced to him by Ed. Hey, if you want to help us out, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BarkerCast589. Our subscribers will get exclusive access to content not available anywhere else, like our Collector's Corner video series, rare Barker videos, and early behind-the-scenes stuff. Our supporters get to help us choose episode topics and even join us on the podcast. Our supporters also get access to the exclusive channel in our Discord server. We'll be forever grateful if you consider helping us out and subscribing to our Patreon. We owe everything to this circle of magicians, so let's give a shout out to our Patreon supporters and see what's new on Patreon. David Anderson, Erik Van T Holt, Daniel Elven, Amanda Stewart, Bradley Gartz, David Blair, and Matthew Batten. Thank you so much. We really mean it. This helps us a lot. And of course, our sponsors, Don Bertram and Ed Martinez's YouTube channel. So what's new on Patreon? We've got a tour of my new BarkerCast Studio. So I go over the history of it, trials and tribulations, and at the end you get a tour going through the building, which is pretty neat. That's where I'm talking right now.
When I was discussing this show with Clive Barker, he said, monsters defy death. Frankenstein, his creature, Dracula, the Cenobites, they all defy death. In which case, I'm definitely a monster. What am I doing that's making me feel so tired? All I'm doing is breathing. But if you really want to understand the design of the Chatterer, there was something about them that made me uneasy, some longing, and at the same time, some deadly fear. I could have been sent to prison for being gay. An all-male prison. One day at drama school, I was late for class. I was hurrying with my mate Peter, and we reached the Pelican Crossing near the clock tower in Crouch End. The very nice policewoman who knocked on my door explained they weren't going to be pressing charges. Please, miss, can I play Satan? I never said that. He's lying. So I stopped breathing.
Hey, welcome back to the BarkerCast. Today's returning guest and friend of the podcast is someone whose face and voice you may not recognize immediately, but whose presence has haunted horror cinema in the most unforgettable ways. I'm talking, of course, about none other than actor, author, and now documentarian, Nicholas Vince. Best known for his chilling role as the Chatterer Cenobite in Clive Barker's Hellraiser films, one of his latest projects, the deeply personal one-man documentary, I Am Monsters, he steps out from behind the prosthetics to tell his own story, raw, theatrical, and beautifully human. From growing up gay in conservative Britain to facing intense physical transformations and exploring what it means to be labeled a monster, Nicholas shares not just horror history, but intimate truths that resonate far beyond genre. So settle in as we talk about the life behind the mask, turning trauma into art, and why telling your story, no matter how dark, can be the most powerful act of all. Thanks for being with us together, Nicholas.
Oh, sorry, I just got chills. I've been trying to write copy to describe my show for years and still haven't got as good as that. Thank you. That's brilliant. I'm gonna please write that down and send it to me. I will use that because that's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you. I'll make sure to put that on our review in the blog when we publish that.
You.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That encapsulates it all. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Hi, folks. Hi.
Hi.
Hey, yeah. So, and what monsters do? I guess what I Am Monsters. I'm sorry.
It's all right. I do it.
The thing that struck me about it as I was watching it was like there are stories in there that we've heard, at conventions or on, when we've talked to you on podcasts. But this is done in a much different way. It feels so much more personal, where before some of these stories were anecdotal, or here's a crazy thing that happened in my past, or a crazy thing that happened on Hellraiser 2, on the set of Hellraiser 2. Now all of a sudden it feels more personal and more, it's hard to describe, you know what
Visceral?
I mean? But definitely visceral, especially the underbite thing. And we don't want to. I'm trying not to spoil it because people really should go out and buy it, and we'll have a link in the show notes where they can get it.
Thank you. Thank you, because yes, that really encapsulates what we were trying to do with it. And perhaps I should speak a little bit about how it came to be to begin with,
Yes,
for people who don't know. So back in 2019, I'd been the patron of the London Horror Festival, which at the time was the UK's longest running and largest festival of live horror performance. Which basically is fringe theatre, and basically I'd been asked to be patron, as I say, 5 years previously, and had the great joy of every October traveling up to theatres above pubs in Islington in North London to sit with like 40 or 30 other people in a really small black box where the performers are like maybe 3 or 4 feet from you, performing theatre, doing one-person shows. And some of my favourite theatrical moments are due to London Horror Festival. Extraordinary, I thought. And this was, so come 2019, I'm thinking, okay, well, I've got all these I've watched all these one-person shows. I'd really like to do something with all these stories I've been telling over the years, but also expand it, as you say, and talk about my life and as I said, about what it is to be a monster and explore that a bit more. So I created the one-man show. And then, of course, and I'm thinking, great, I can take this out into theatres, when I'm traveling to the States and appearing in conventions and festivals, then I can do it as, rather than doing a Q&A, why not just spend 50 minutes and we'll do something different? That, of course, didn't happen because of the pandemic. And it was during that I was invited to do excerpts, just film excerpts on my iPhone at home. And I thought, okay, this sounds kind of interesting. And how do we do this? Okay, well, the natural way to do it is to me making a cup of tea, talking to the camera. Frustratingly, I've lost the original video footage.
Very domestic.
But it was that thing of when I looked it back and I thought, this is really kind of interesting, the way you can talk to a member of the, you can just talk to people. And I remember when we first started having found my co-producers at Dark Rift, Stewart Spark and Paul Buckler, and talking about how we wanted to do this. How do you take a stage show but make it a cinematic experience? On the first day of filming, I said to Stewart, so where am I looking? Am I looking to the side of the camera over there as if this is an interview, or down the throat? He said, no, very clearly down the throat of the lens. Directly to you are having a conversation with the audience. And you're just about having, and I think one of the nice reviews that I got was like, it's like meeting up with an old friend. It was just their experience of it was like meeting up with an old friend. And I think that's what we wanted to get. It's just this idea. I'm just chatting, sitting in the room with you, telling you stories.
That feels very, very intimate. And I've seen some pictures of you practicing in 2019. You were practicing inside an empty room. Were you already practicing just for the theater stage? Was that like a 3-day show that you did
that
at the
was
time?
Yes, so the stuff of me in the empty room, that's with that was one of my best mates, Dawson James, who's an actor who I met years ago on a short film that we'd done. So when I was putting together the original one-man show, it was a week, because I'd written it, but then Dawson and it was a question of rewriting it, and so the idea of how do you present this theatrically? How do you not rely on technology, because this is small fringe theatre, and the idea was that the show had to be portable, and we came up with the idea of easels on which I could put pictures but cover them with cloths. I'd always liked this. I think I must have seen it in countless horror films where you're in the castle and it's the old creepy castle, and you go through the rooms and the furniture's covered with these cloths, and there are portraits covered with cloths, and there's always a dramatic moment in which the cloth is pulled away from the picture. So that, and basically what that meant was that it was six picture frames with the pictures of myself, and in fact you see them in the film. And it just kind of made, and the way we'd set it up on stage, that they were in a semicircle, and we start with the chatterer. And in fact, it's in the trailer for the film, like when I say, but talking about the chatterer. But if you really want to know about the chatterer, then we need to go back. And in the original stage, that meant I walked from center stage to extreme stage right. And thereafter, I was basically moving across the stage, revealing the pictures as I went. And it gave it a kind of a structure. And again, on stage, we had a table with some books on, and a chair that I could sit next to. And then I had a lectern on the other side of the stage where I could read. So when in the film, there are extracts from the books that had influenced me. So I had those as readings when we were doing the stage. So yeah, it was all, and that's what you're talking about. It was during that we worked out what worked and what didn't work and what it meant. I remember getting about halfway through the week and just thinking, Jesus, can I do this?
Yeah.
And in fact, there was a conversation with Dawson. It was like every line that I'd written, it was just kind of like, Nick, it's not too late to pull out. Seriously, it had got to the stage because it was so much. And I think a lot of it was to do with the actual emotional experience of writing this stuff and looking at this stuff and going back to some very difficult times in my life.
Yeah.
And then when I was doing the film, it was very much the same, because the stage show was 50 minutes long. The drama documentary is 70 minutes long plus credits. So yeah, delved even more big. So yeah, I mean, rehearsal is always a kind of an exciting thing, but it's also very challenging and it's a very vulnerable thing to do.
Of course,
I've
especially.
found that if I have to talk in front of a large group of people about something traumatic, I think I'm going to be fine. And then when I get up there and I start doing it, I just start choking up and I so did that ever become an issue? Where you feel
Oh,
you
good
start to feel
question.
overwhelmed?
I think by that stage, by the time I got into, okay, so if we talk about the three performances I did as part of the London Horror Festival, this was actually in a larger theatre. It wasn't in a small. It was about a
Mm-hmm.
100-seater theatre.
Is that the
I
Pleasance
think there were
Pleasance
about,
Theater?
this was in, so this was, can't even remember the name of the theatre in North London now, the Pleasance Theatre in North
Yes.
London, where I'd done and there was about, it was a 100-seater, and I think we had about 40 or 50 people in each night. And they so they spread around the auditorium and so on. One of the best pieces of advice I got was from the dear, dear, wonderful man, Julian Sands, an actor who you probably know,
Yeah, of
Yeah.
um,
course.
from Gothic and who I miss dreadfully.
Warlock.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, he's just,
Yeah.
yes, just, he was the kindest, most generous man. I remember telling him about this and him being very upset that one of my great regrets, um, that he never got to see it because he'd encouraged me so much about doing this. And the piece of advice I got from Julian was, he said, Nick, just remember, when you go out, you're just talking to friends. When you walk out on that stage, it's not an audience, they're your friends. They've turned up to listen to you. They want to listen to you. They like you because that's why they turned up. And it was, so when I was doing the live shows, there is that thing. And but also I think, Ryan, don't forget I'm a trained actor.
Yeah, yeah, of
And
course.
part of that training is, and it's something I remember learning when I was a teenager, is like there is a different emotion, gosh, without going into the theories of acting and so on.
Yeah.
You tend to have the emotion in the rehearsal room.
Hmm.
And this is kind of the Stanislavski method.
Sure.
It's so not.
Emotional
But
memory.
generally,
Yeah.
emotion is during rehearsal. You find all the emotional truth of what you're talking about.
Right.
But when you're actually presenting it on stage, because it is a performance, even though I'm
Mm-hmm.
chatting to I'm just talking to people, you remember the emotion, but you're not touched by it. So I don't
Mm.
remember a moment like that. There were moments when we were doing the filming, yes, when it got too tough, but that was much to do with tiredness. Because again, the filming took 5 days
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and fairly intense days as well. And there was, I was really, really lucky. Um, our kind of script supervisor, sort of dreadful. I can't immediately recall his name at the moment, and that's just old age because he was Luke. Um, was really good, and thank heavens for Luke because he was there on the book. He had the script. Let me do a take. He said, "You've missed out this word, or you've missed out this thought." And so we could have a dialogue at the end of each take saying, okay, do I need to do it again? And this is what I need to remember. Because it's just, you're doing it in small sections, but you've got
Yeah.
to, but also it's a very different thing from doing a stage performance where you've got
Right.
a live audience, where you're bouncing and you are always having a conversation. When you're on stage, it is a conversation because you're listening for laughter and reactions. When you're on set, when literally you're doing what I'm doing now, which is staring down into a little
Mm-hmm.
teeny tiny hole and trying to connect with you guys. That is a very different experience. And the emotion, because you are so close to me, the emotion has to be there, has to be more truthful.
Hmm.
So
Right.
oddly enough, it is very different. So to answer your question, and I completely appreciate it because that's what it's like. Because you're doing something slightly different. Gosh, talking about trauma on stage is always, in front of people is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's very challenging.
It is very challenging, especially if you do it in a black box theater, where there's no set, right? There's nothing behind you except for the easels, which is a little bit like walking through the memory palace in a way, like you're walking through the little memories of your life. I
Yes.
find that very enticing and compelling to
Thank you.
introspect in that way. And one of the things that I wanted to ask was, what were some of the biggest challenges in adapting a theatrical monologue for the documentary format?
I think that was one of the things that I was very clear on in Stewart when I was talking to Stewart and Paul. It was Paul's suggestion to break it up into acts. That there are kind of, it's almost like advert
Like
breaks.
5 acts, right?
Yeah, it's 5 acts. It's a play, and I very clearly presented it as a play, and then it's not presented as a play. We start out literally a recreation of what it. In fact, on the Thursday when we were doing the filming, we brought in a live audience because we always knew that some of it. And one of the things that I was conscious of, having watched the filming of a very good one-man show. But which had disappointed me was that the director had just placed the camera in the audience as if it was a member of the audience, so that he could capture the physicality of the performance.
Like a TED Talk, kind of.
Say again?
Like watching a TED Talk, sort of.
Yes, but yes, absolutely. Like, that's fine, but then it is very much like watching a TED Talk. You're distanced. I think the reason why they move the camera in film is so you have mid shots and close-ups. It's so that you can see the expression. It's so that you can see the eyes. It's so that you can clearly see what's going on. Now, what I didn't want to do was to just simply put cameras around the stage and constantly just stay within the stage space. And so when I was discussing this with Paul and Stewart and rewriting the script, was because basically I knew the guys from having worked with them on Book of Monsters and then later on How to Kill Monsters. And we were talking about it in the early stages, and I was like, okay, here's the theatrical script. What are your thoughts? And here's the video that Craig took on his iPhone of my performance of the stage show. What are your thoughts? And we both agreed that what we needed to do was to have another, and it's literally called The Space in the screenplay, where I'm sitting talking. So when it cuts to that blue-roomed, blood-spattered cells, that is the space. And it just meant that we could play around with shifting around sofas into a cell and having a television and computers and desks and so on. So you mentioned not having a set earlier on. So we could start having around a bit of a set.
That's true. And I think those moments really work in terms of immersing us into the set that you're talking about, the memory that you're bringing up, because sometimes you're laying on a couch or you're laying on your back when you had your surgery, you're laying on a bed and you're still talking to us. And it's like you're transporting us to that memery. So in that sense, the set does represent our immersion into that memory, that sense memory. Yeah.
Those are the moments, because when the floating out of the body, Stewart, he said, I know how we can do this. I know how we can do this.
Oh, wow.
That took half a day to do just that one shot, just that. It worked. Actually, it took us a couple of hours, I think, to actually sort that out. And once it was set up, and so we had so much fun, setting up all that stuff and so on. But again, it was it was fun to do that kind of stuff, just to make it more interesting. I'm again very lucky in Hamish Sachs, the cinematographer, is so good that he can make all this stuff look really, really very, very good.
That helped really a lot with the immersion. That and the like the model, the model town. I thought that was really neat too.
Thank you. Again, that was just so much fun. We did that on, it was Stewart's dad makes model railways. And he was the man who created the clock tower in the middle of the town. Otherwise, it was just kind of standard cars and so on. And we knew how we were going to do this. So we had our Sunday lunch and then we set all this up. We were taking photographs and we got the first shot done. And I suddenly looked at the cars on the table. I said, Stuart, we've got the cars driving on the wrong side of the road. We had them
Sure.
driving on the right rather than on the left.
Yeah, right.
So we had to redo those shots, but it was like finding little figures that are literally about so tall.
Yeah.
And again, it was just that was part of the fun of it. It was how do you recreate that moment so that the audience understands and feel what you're going through,
Hmm.
but do it on, not going to go out and recreate that moment in real life. Not going to get stuntmen and live cars
Right.
and so on.
Right.
So that again is what I really enjoyed about the project, was coming up with these different ideas as to how we can represent stuff, and that was part of the challenge, but also part of the fun of it.
I think it's a great examination of what it means to be labeled a monster. I mean, both in the literal sense and when it comes to horror roles, right?
Mm,
And metaphorically when it comes to society,
mm,
and how embracing these identities has shaped your understanding of your own self. That was an interesting trip to take in this documentary, and also the fact that the monstrosity is kind of in the eye of the beholder.
mm.
It's kind of like a judgment that people do upon other people. And for example, in the case that you were bringing up about growing up under Thatcher's rule, I
Mm.
think Thatcher was the monster in that situation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's clear. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously that. Even though a lot of people didn't think she was a monster, but it's all about what is being a monster, right? What
Yeah.
what defines a monster? So I think
We,
you really
we
explore those
yeah,
themes.
we're all using it in two ways, right? There's the monster that's the terrifying, authoritarian, and we've also got the monster that's the individual, right? That's that's different
Feels
from
like
the
an
crowd.
outcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And those are two different things, but we're using the same word for them.
yeah, but also, I mean, the fact that Thatcher is a really interesting example, because remember, have you ever heard of the pop singer Cliff Richard?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1960s.
Barbie Wilde interviewed him.
Say, say again?
Barbie Wilde interviewed him once.
Yes, yes, she did. Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay. Cliff Richard was a big fan and friend of Margaret Thatcher,
Ah,
which I always found weird. But I
strange.
remember him talking about being at an event at number 10 Downing Street, where our Prime Minister lives, and they're holding a party there. And um, a waitress dropping a tray with some canapes on it or something, and this happening with a big clash. Immediate Margaret Thatcher was there supporting the waitress, telling her not to worry, making sure there were napkins, stuff was cleared up, it was dealt with, and being very caring towards the waitress and not not snapping at her, not being angry.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I think this is one of the things that's so important to remember, and talk about at the end of the film, is that the monstrous is, can just be a moment. There is I've not actually watched the TV series. There was a TV series in the last couple of years with David Tennant, all about being a murderer, and basically the tagline was, we could all be a murderer. All it takes is a really bad day.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the things that we're talking about here is that, yeah, and it is, and again, really why I wanted to talk about this, and I can get really angry with people and you think of other people as being monsters, mostly when they've hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel emotionally attacked, I've gone through something recently, and it's just like, don't want to speak to the person, do not want to be around the person, will not. And it's going to take me a long, and it's like thinking, okay, I want nothing to do with them, because of the way I felt as a result of the way they spoke about me, etc., etc.
Yeah, of course.
And I
The way they
think
make you
this is,
feel.
yeah, and I think this is a lot of I talked about, all monsters are based on fear in some sort of form.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, and it's really weird, isn't it? I'm writing a short story at the moment, and I got to write to the monster the other day, and I really enjoyed it because it was like, oh, this is cool. I'm making this monster, this physical supernatural being,
Mm-hmm.
and make it as gross and horrible, and make it go, ooh, and make somebody have shivers down the back of their spine when they read this moment. Give them that delicious chill and think, oh my God, that's
Right.
horrible. But also a great deal of fun. So monstrous is a really interesting word, and I mentioned the Greek myths and legends because they're just so much fun. The Minotaur and Medusa, and so we're all fascinated with. Barbie Wilde is a wonderful animatronic head of the Medusa from
Clash of the Titans.
yeah, no, is it Clash of the Titans? No, the earlier one, the Ray Harryhausen one.
Yeah, that's Clash of the Titans.
Is it Clash of the Titans where they're
Or
all?
is it The Adventures of Sinbad?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not Clash of the. Or yes, it is Clash of the Titans. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right, with Mark Hamill. Yes, it
Yeah.
is. I was trying to remember which young man was wearing a toga. It
That movie
is,
goes
of course,
back a
it's a
while.
Harryhausen one. Yes, it's Ray
Right.
Yeah.
Harryhausen. But
Yeah,
yes,
there's a remake of it that's not nearly as good as the
No,
original.
no.
yeah.
But yeah, so this I guess the mark of a good interviewee is that you anticipate the questions, because I had another here that was I was going to ask
I'm
you
so
about
bad.
the energy or the emotional impact shift between the stage play and the documentary, and you already got into that. It's true
Mm.
that when you're on stage, you don't have the luxury of having a different take, right? So
Mm.
the engagement with the audience is much more intimate and much more prolonged than shooting a documentary. But it was very interesting when you guys brought in like an audience for the documentary, because we were just Ryan and I we were discussing a little bit before we started, and we're like, do you think that that was shot during some of the original theater plays? And I was like, I don't know, maybe it was shot for the documentary. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was interesting to find that out. Yeah, but what was it like working with a crew to direct such an intimate story into documentary format?
it was again incredibly lucky that the people who came along and supported were very good. As I mentioned, Luke already, and the rest of the gang. I'm credited as the director, but of course, I was in front of the camera, and it's very hard to direct in front of the camera. Stuart Spark, the first AD, was the person behind the camera who was, effectively directing the shots. But again, it was very collaborative. When you've got such a small crew, it's not, there is no, if someone's got a good idea, I'll listen. And I think this is obviously my first feature film, and the person who obviously I listened to most was Clive Barker, who just surrounded himself with really good people when he did Hellraiser. And I think I was really lucky with the people who I was able to, to bring on board and who are actually there with the set. So it was like when we were setting up a shot, it was like, okay, this is what, okay, why don't we do this? I was thinking we'd do it like this. Okay, fine. Where do you need me? Okay, but, and then let's do this again. And actually, okay, have we got enough takes? Well, possibly not. Okay, well, Nick, here's how you can edit round it. This is, this is what you got. And again, a lot of this stuff came from Stewart. So I relied hugely, hugely on Stewart's part to do that. But again, when you're, there's only 4 or 5 of us on set at any time. Stewart was doing sound as well as doing the first edit. It was Hamish and his camera assistant. It was Luke. So we literally were, that's, a handful of us on set at any time. So it's a very close, intimate relationship. And these guys were so supportive. I can't imagine anything more boring than to sit through me telling stories again and again and again and knocking up the lines and so. But they were so supportive, so that whenever I, and they, yeah, I was just, I think, just, I'm just very, very grateful to them for being so inspirational and coming up with such great ideas, basically.
I knew the story for a few years now, but I think I've heard you say it in an interview. The first time I ever heard about the connection of the chatter with a personal trauma was when you mentioned that you were shooting Hellbound and one of the hooks went right into your mouth while you were performing. Yeah. But it was years after that I found out about the fact that, when you were 19, you had to have major facial reconstruction surgery because you had an underbite. I also did that. I had to wear these like weird contraptions that would push my chin and whatever with springs and things that would have to like push my teeth back and push other teeth forward. It's a horrible experience to live with that until finally you just accept, okay, I'm going to have weird teeth forever. It's just the way it is. But I can imagine having that experience that you mentioned where you almost died after that surgery that had gone slightly askew, and then becoming the chatterer. Seems a little perverse that someone would put you in the role of the chatterer after that experience. Was it complete accident, or did someone knew that story and they just wanted to put you in the chatterer makeup? That
someone would be Clive, right?
I mean, yeah. Yes. Are you saying that Clive might be perverse? Have you met Clive?
So I guess it comes from, there is a little bit of a connection between those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. I think I can't remember. I don't think I mentioned it in the film. I didn't spot the connection.
Yeah,
I didn't spot the until we talked about it 3 months afterwards. You said, Nick, didn't you realize? It's like, no, I didn't. It's an actor.
Quite a choice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
your watch is just like mine.
Say again?
Oh, your watch is just like mine. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Twinsies. Project Red.
Yes. Twinsies. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
So there's a lot of personal transformation in that, and also it's a journey. What I appreciated about the documentary was there was a journey that starts with a young boy trying to find out his place in the world, finding out what he likes, finding out the things that you like, and some things you wouldn't find out, you wouldn't admit to yourself until you were at least 21, right? When you finally, accepted that, or not, I shouldn't say accepted, but once you finally realize that, yeah, I do tend to go more for the guys in the erotic stuff that I watch more so than the women. But you mentioned an episode where someone put something in your drawer and you thought it was your brother, right?
In my bedroom.
Yes.
Yes, actually, and that's interesting. It's interesting of course, actually, that struggle and that realization and that decision actually didn't come until much later.
Mm.
Until, in fact, my late, even into my early 30s.
Gotcha.
There was still an ambivalence as to what my sexuality might be. And I think that is, yeah, and I think, yeah, I was in my 30s.
Wow.
It was way into my 30s.
That's a testament to how living in a country where when you're growing up, it is illegal to be gay. I mean, that
Oh, yeah.
leads to a lot of pressure in the intersection of
Oh,
personal
yeah.
and
No,
cultural identity.
yeah, no, absolutely. And you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
What is mentioned in the film is about, being 21. I could have been sent to prison, an all-male prison.
Right,
Absolutely
right,
right. But
right.
my actual personal journey itself definitely lasted into my 30s before I actually eventually said, no, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so that actually goes on. And I think this is the thing with so many people is that, and also people change, that actually, I'm thinking of somebody who came out, I've met him, it was actually my boss's father,
Mhm.
came out when he was in his 70s after his wife had passed
Wow.
away.
Yeah.
And again, this is because, so many men, it's like, so yeah, I think,
Feel like they don't want to hurt the people in
yes,
their
and also you
life.
need to, you want to conform.
Right.
And also, again, this is, I think, is something that sometimes leads to people behaving monstrously, is when you're forced to conform, when you're forced to
Exactly.
fit into a box, and then you can become violent because um,
Are coming to grips with,
you're oppressed, and
yeah.
you are oppressed,
Right.
um, and therefore repressed, and this can happen in all sorts of sexuality. And so one of my big bugbears at the moment, and the things that makes me so angry one of the things, so many things that make me angry at the moment, um, in our country, the Supreme Court has just decided that woman and female can only be applied to people who were gendered like that at birth, and therefore
Right.
refuse to recognize transgenderism, which is ridiculous. I mean, biologically. So one of the people, one of the first people to say this is nonsense was the British Medical Association, because they know as doctors that so many people, when they are born, that not a huge numbers, but a significant number of human physical beings are born with not quite the right
Yeah.
to say that this person is definitely this, and it's just a little
Yeah.
bit of snipping and goes on to make sure that they conform to
Yeah.
something. And and therefore these labels and this understanding of gender is nonsense. It is absolutely nonsense. Sorry, I think,
Yeah.
yes, I think, sorry, I've done my usual one, my
We're
tangent.
going through that in the United States right now too.
That's
Oh
right.
yeah,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's because it's just, oh Jesus. A politician over here was asked how, a right-wing politician was asked how he would pay for all these things he was promising, and he started talking about, well, getting rid of all, the wokeness and all the
Ugh.
Ugh.
etc., etc. And it's just like, but none of you never ask any of the other parties this, because none of the parties can actually show you, like, yes, you
Yeah.
can, and actually, yes, you do have to be able to. But this is what populist um,
Yeah.
politics is about. It's about the soundbite,
Of course.
and
That's
it's
why.
about
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
about coming back to fears, and it's what I talked about in the film. Is like, we it's so easy for politicians just say it's their fault. You haven't got a job.
Yeah.
Usually immigrants, but it could be transgenders. people. It
Yeah.
could be people who are anywhere on the spectrum of sexuality. It could be.
It just becomes a scapegoat, a political
Yeah,
scapegoat.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
you know, you had
You know,
like after the ruling of the UK Supreme Court. I mean, J.K. Rowling, she tweeted a picture of herself smoking a cigar in her $15 million yacht, calling it Turf VE Day. And I was like, it's who's the monster here? It's just ridiculous that some
Hey,
people
What
could get
is
into
what
a
does
position.
VE Day mean?
The Victory
well,
Day, you know?
victory, yeah, victory. Well,
Yeah.
VE is Victory in Europe
Yeah.
days.
Oh,
Quite
okay.
what
Yeah,
she's,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we had VJ Day and
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Victory in
yes,
Europe was from 80 years ago, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's just that's the true monstrosity is people who are selfish enough to the point where they say, I am rich enough or I have enough political power that I can just, punch down and not feel bad about it. And
Yeah,
and the rest of us have to
Yeah.
take it. It's like I don't think we
Well,
need
and
to
yeah.
it's
take
not
it.
like she's just
Yeah.
answered questions in a bigoted way, right? She's going out of her way to
Oh, yes.
announce these things unsolicited. It's just
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, of course, as I understand it, and I've not read her under, it's because she had a very traumatic experience um, when she was physically attacked, a long time before she became famous.
Oh,
True.
And this is, but of course, it is having done a play called Transcripts a few years ago, which was based on
Mm-hmm.
interviews with trans people, 30 interviews. So basically, we as actors were performing verbatim lines of what it is for the trans experience. And it was, and all the terminology and the way that the different people, um, the different people reacted. But one of my favorite moments from that experience was traveling down with some other cast members because we were performing in the West Country, traveling down from London. Two favorite experiences were thinking, oh my God, we are performing in a small seaside town in the West Country in the UK. Jesus, who's going to come and see this? Well, who came to see this? And we know because we always had a Q&A after the performance, were a lot of people dressed oppositely to their birth gender,
Of course.
supported by their partners, marital partners in some cases. And it was like, oh, whoa, this is right. But the reason I smile, I always think of Joey, one of the cast members, and he just used to wear a T-shirt that said, "Some men have cunts, get over it." I just thought, and Joey is a wee fella, not very tall, but it's just like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like Joey was so inspiring, and I
Sure.
remember one of the other cast members telling me they'd had a wonderful experience when they'd gone into a chemist and optometrist, and the young man behind the counter who she reckoned was only in his early 20s, if not late teens, just said, "How do you like to be identified?" And she said, "Whoa, what? Somebody is not going to make that, just how would you like to be identified?" It's just like,
Yeah.
wow, that is so. And I think so much of this, I mean, the day-to-day people, the day-to-day, like all these things, like before Thatcher started talking about children being betrayed because they were told it was okay to be gay, very famous speech that she gave, that kicked off the whole Clause 28, Section 28 stuff, and the stuff I read out in the film. That people, ordinary people, just like, oh, okay, they're weird. Okay, they're different. It's fine. It's not to say that we didn't have gay bashing, etc., etc. Yes, that stuff's has always been around. But mostly the ordinary public do not care. They're far more interested in having a roof over their head and being able to feed their kids. They really don't care. It's a nice emotional tag that politicians use to either blame, whoever, the guys you're shipping off without trial to Venezuela,
Yeah.
whoever it is, whatever it is, the people of a different color, different skin, different sexuality, different way of speaking, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not sure about Starmer, but Trump is saying that he wishes he could deport American citizens to other countries, which is
well, he already
ridiculous.
is.
He already is, right? I
he
mean,
already is. I mean, as I understand it, he already is, and they think, oh yeah, we didn't mean to. He's an American. Yeah, they already.
What people forget is that sure, you have to worry about your life and feeding your kids, but authoritarians are always going to be corrupt, and they're never going to stop. If you're someone who doesn't conform to the current societal pressures, you're not going to do well in an authoritarian regime because it becomes more and more homogenized as years go by under an authoritarian regime, and repression just gets worse and people just feel emboldened. I mean, remember when one of the things I found out after watching your documentary was the fact that there was a secret language that British gay men used to speak back in the 50s and 60s, Polari. So someone made a short film about two men meeting at a park, speaking in nothing but Polari. And it was fascinating. It was truly fascinating.
Well, because you think this is one of the things I'm talking about is that now there's fascinating stuff, but Polari tended to actually come from the East End of London. It wasn't necessarily a gay thing. It was an existing kind of language that was spoken by the criminal classes in order to confuse the police.
Right.
So is it like a code kind of
thing? Put it this way. If I said to you, oh, Jose, how bonus var du, you jolly old eek.
Right.
What I'm actually saying, Jose, how lovely to see your gorgeous face.
There you go.
Hardy, your jolly old eek. Your boner eek. Now, where I first came across Polari is on a BBC radio program from the late 1950s, early 60s, called Round the Horn, where they had two characters who spoke this. It was a sketch show.
Gotcha.
And each week, Kenneth Horne, the central person, used to go and encounter these two characters, Julian and Sands, one of which was played by Kenneth Williams, and it was very clear they were gay. It was very clear that what was going on, and the whole show was based around double innuendos and being quite saucy, but incredibly popular. And it was just like laughing, laughing, but also not in a cruel way. Yes, it was like this, but it meant some sort of representation on the BBC. I mean, when I grow up, representation of gay was always kind of slightly cool, and homosexuals were camp and ridiculous and over the top, and etc. etc. We all know things. Just go out and watch Lavender Cinema, whatever the documentary is called. The representation of, if you're queer, then you must be a murderer, or a transvestite, then you must be Michael Caine in a dress, the murderer. There's all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then, of course, I mean, we've had you on the show a few times before, so we've asked you a lot of questions that people can see in this wonderful book that we sent you a copy of. So we're not going to be asking a lot of stuff that we've asked before, but one of the cool parts of the show is when you talk about, meeting Clive Barker and how playing the Chatterer kind of became a very important part of launching your career when it comes to being an actor and stuff like that. So that was a true treat for people who want to know more about Hellraiser. But this is definitely, if someone wants to know who Nicholas Vince is, I would definitely point them to this wonderful documentary.
Yes.
It's a
wonderful. One thing we wanted to ask you too is this going to, have you worked on getting it on streaming services as well? It seems like a lot of documentaries end up that way.
Yeah, they do. Yes. So later this year, I don't know. It'll definitely be on streaming services.
Okay. I mean, of course, for me, physical is better, right? I mean, you can go
It's
on
such
the
a nice
website right
package,
now
isn't
and
it?
get it autographed, right? And
know.
right? That's
There
so
it
cool.
is.
Yes.
And not just the wonderful documentary, but you've got inside these beautiful little postcards,
Yeah.
and this wonderful little booklet that people can open and read.
Yes.
You know, this wonderful little booklet here with
And it's got short films going back like more than a decade, right? That you've
Oh, yes.
collected on the disc as well.
Yes. Yes, it's got lots of extras. It's got all the short films that I've ever made,
I
Yeah.
remember
written and
when the
directed,
night whispered,
and so
where
on
you're
as well.
walking birdie, correct?
Say again?
I remember when the night whispered, where you're
Oh,
walking
yes.
birdie.
Yeah.
Oh, Bertie.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
so cold. He
Yeah.
felt so bad because he didn't leave. We got worried because it got so cold that night. We got him in. I remember Craig lying on top of him to keep him so cold. We originally planned that he'd be able to sit in a car and get warm and so on. But you know how like on film sets, things always take longer than you want. And we did get him back to the house as soon as we physically could. But he didn't get off his bed for the next day.
Yeah.
He was
Oh.
like, I am not moving. What have you done to me?
Oh.
He's fine. He's still with us. This is a long time ago. And
Okay.
he's,
Okay.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
How old is Birdie now?
he is 13, 14. We're always a little
Okay.
unsure because we didn't have him as a puppy. He was a rescue.
Oh, yeah.
But he's still, bless him, though, these days, he had a rough Christmas of it because he got hematomas, cauliflower ear, blood in his
Oh my
ears.
gosh.
And he had
Oh.
to go under general anesthetic a couple of times.
So
So,
drain that.
yeah, so now one ear can pick up, but the
Oh.
other is
Did he
constantly.
get attacked by another dog?
No, it was just because he'd just shaken his head from side to side so violently. What they reckoned was he
Oh.
probably got an infection, and his way of dealing with the itch was to flick his head from side to side so violently.
Yeah.
And of course, once that had happened, and once they drained it, and it was a lot of drama. And
Vessels burst, and then the blood
yeah,
pools
no,
under the skin. That's right.
but it was, yeah, and also
No.
it basically was in a cone for nearly 2 months. Yeah, a
Wow.
month and a half, 2 months.
Oh.
He was not a happy bunny, but he's back to his old self now. But you
Oh,
know,
good.
the fact that he's getting old, and you
Yeah.
never know how old his age, considering how he can drag you around on his walks every so often.
Yeah. You do have a few short films there in the Blu-ray as well. The Night Whispered, Necessary Evils, Your Appraisal, which I saw with Ryan when we were in Texas, Texas Frightmare Weekend.
Yeah.
It was so funny. It was such a funny movie, even though the content itself is kind of horrible, but it's basically torture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And of course, Dawson, who I was referring to earlier on, Dawson James plays the young man in Your Appraisal.
That's right.
Yes, you've got a very dark sense of humor, but again,
Yeah.
that said, I think the performance by Nigel, it is funny and it is in a darkly comic sense, but Nigel, who plays the boss, that moment at the end when he realizes what he's done and he takes his glasses off and just as he works, what is he going to do next? I think it's just a great performance, and it's just one of those. I hope
really good. Very
Yeah.
scary
Yeah.
too. Very
Yeah.
scary. But
Yeah.
the twist, I did not see that coming. People definitely need to watch this. Was The Night Whispered your first directed short?
Yes,
That's right. I remember that. It was a Kickstarter.
it was. That was the Kickstarter. Yes, yes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And then,
Paper Cut. See, was that kind of a promo for Other People's Darkness?
Yes, absolutely. And again, one of those. See, I'm so bad at names when I'm in these conversations.
Oh, that's okay.
The director of young man.
Von
So-
Page.
Yes. So basically, what happened was, I thought, right, I want to do a promo, and at the same time, he says, moving out of shot just to see if he can actually reach out. Oh, yes, I can. So when the book Other People's Darkness came out.
Oh, you have it. Wow.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's how it. That's how it ended up.
This is what inspired the whole thing. Was that one of a guy called John Von Pye from Belgium.
Yeah, actually, he's been a Kickstarter backer of ours.
Yes, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. He's now in
Wonderful
Scotland,
person.
now living in Scotland. He's teaching over in Scotland. Anyway, John created and sent me this, and I thought, thank you, John, this is brilliant. And actually, you know what, we could actually do something about this. And he'd said that, oh, that was interesting because he just had a young film graduate come and film him in the Forge. And kind of one thing led to another, and it's like, yeah, we put this kind of script together, you know, like 2-3 pages, is like, and John is the person who is in the film as the
reader of the book, and the blacksmith.
Yeah, and it was great, and it's just like,
I loved it.
God, I can't remember. I seem to remember the face. I recognize him, but the name's gone. But it's like, and what was great was that when one of the places that I Am Monsters screened was in Belgium.
Oh.
And so that director came along with his girlfriend and another film director who I've been chatting to on and off over the years.
Dwayne Daniels?
It's just like, oh, this is fabulous. I actually got to meet, not only screen the film in Belgium, but we've got to hang out with friends beforehand.
Yeah.
Which was great. It was great.
That's cool.
Paper Cut. I think it was directed by Dwayne Daniels.
Dwayne, thank you.
That's
it.
Yeah. And written by you, of course.
Yes.
And there's a wonderful also interview about the making of I Am Monsters with Dominic Brunt.
Yes.
Which was very informative.
Thank you. See, and again, this is Dominic's been a mate of mine through Fright Fest, the film festival, the London Film Festival where we premiered, which I've been going to for decades. And again, really, and this is one of the great things, one of the heartwarming and joyful things about I Am Monsters was the cover that you've just shown is by Graham Humphreys, who to me is the best poster maker.
Oh, definitely.
Who still paints film posters.
He is. Did you know he's doing a commission for a Hellbound poster?
No.
Yeah, I'm in that commission. It's going to be an amazing poster. I'll let you know how it looks.
Thank you. I've seen the Hellraiser one, but no, absolutely.
There's a second commission for Hellbound, and I hope there's going to be another commission for Hellraiser 3, but I guess we'll find out.
Yes. But he just an amazing artist, but also Dominic, again, really good filmmaker. And known Dominic again through Fright Fest, and Dominic's on a very popular TV soap over here. So many UK viewers will know may well know the Dominic. They know Dominic's face if they don't immediately recognize the name. So again, just really lucky, and that Dominic agreed to it and came over and did it spent the afternoon with us and did it as a favor, and came up with his own questions. We fed him some questions but came up with all the challenging, really interesting ones. Those are Dominic's questions.
Yeah, it's a fantastic little product. I mean, I didn't want to say product, but it's a fantastic little package.
Thank you. Product's good.
And I can't help but show that recently I got this little boy.
Oh wow.
This bad boy, the Cheddar.
Oh yeah. That reminds me. Ed Martinez had asked us to ask if you had seen these new sculpts of figures from Hellraiser 1, and I'll share my screen so we can look at them.
Yeah,
please do.
Trick or Treat Studios in a big toy fair released their prototypes of the new Hellraiser figures that they're going to release, and the Cheddar looks pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the female Cenobite is clearly the Grace Kirby version, right?
Clearly the Grace Kirby one.
Yeah, and then so here's the Chatterer.
Oh wow. How tall are these?
They look like 12-inch. I don't know, honestly.
I'm going to find out more information about that. But yes,
this is from New Hellraiser from Trick or Treat Studios. Wow.
That's right. They were in the New York Toy Fair in 2025, like a couple of months ago. And I was expecting people to be more on top of this, but it looks like these are going to come out next year. So those Cenobites look particularly well designed, especially the Chatterer. It's a lot of detail for his face for such a small figurine. I'm not sure exactly how tall they are, but
he looks a little full in the figure. I think I was slimmer in those days.
I agree. That apron is doing some hard work.
Maybe just the angle. But
I know.
Yeah.
Yes, these are non-moving by the looks of them. Yeah, these are just pure figures.
Yeah, they might be the kind where you can move the arms a little bit and possibly the head, or maybe replace some limbs. But
of course, these are just they're working on them. Then who knows?
But I do agree that the Chatterer looks like his apron is doing a little bit of hard work there. Did you get to see the new Chatterer in the Hulu Hellraiser film?
Yes. Oh. Yes.
How did you feel about that? We had Jason in our podcast recently, and it was a lot of fun.
Second, you spoke to
Jason Lyles, who played the Chatterer.
Isn't he lovely?
He is.
Yeah.
lovely.
Oh, he was great. Yeah.
Really, really nice fellow. Well, obviously, he's probably told you all the things that I only learned recently, which was the fact that I'd known that I wasn't necessarily supposed to know that he'd been cast through various conversations. But I didn't know. And I I admired his work on Death Note.
Yes, that was pretty
very,
good. Yeah,
very cool. This is very cool.
And he's George in Rampage, the giant gorilla.
Yes. One of my favorite films, actually. I really enjoy that film. But it was only, I think, one of the things I'd said about people when they asked me about the Hulu one. I say, "Oh, well, Chatterer gets killed again." And then I saw a YouTube interviews with the guys who'd actually done the makeups, and they said, they'd had the conversation, well, we're going to kill one of the Cenobites. Well, in that case, it has to be Chatterer because people love him so much. And I thought, oh, that's a really nice compliment. and let's face it, it's not as if he hasn't come back from being killed off.
Oh yeah,
before.
Yeah. So many different permutations of that character.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a Chatterer in every version of some description. In I believe every film has got.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
Maybe not Hellraiser 3. Yeah.
Now you say that. Jose, if you pick up the Funko Pop.
Yes. It does say Hellraiser 3.
It does say Hellraiser 3.
Why? Why is it?
Because they could, as I understand it, because of licensing rights. It wasn't clear, and I really do need to check this out. Somebody told me that Chatterer is lying dead on the floor in one of the shots in Hellraiser 3.
Oh.
And that's how they got it, and that's how they did it.
Huh.
That is what I've...
Not even like a flashback or anything?
No, maybe, I don't know. It could be.
It's time to rewatch Hellraiser 3.
Yeah, I've got to watch it one frame at a time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yes, I do. Yes. So
interesting, fascinating. Now I got to do a hunt.
Yes.
Through Hellraiser 3 to find the Chatterer. That would be terrific if he was there. Yeah. So you mentioned you were writing a story recently. So are you considering doing more autobiographical work or returning to fiction next?
This is fiction. This is all fiction. I think I'm probably done with autobiographical stuff. I would love to do another one-man show if I ever find the energy and the time to to think about doing it, I would love, because that is a great deal of fun. And I do mean a show rather than a film. Because just getting up in front of an audience and talking to people for like 15 minutes, that is a great deal of fun. So third volume, honestly, I am determined to get the third volume of short stories out this summer, the next couple of months.
Excellent.
I've got 3 more stories. That's 4, Nick. 3. I've got 3 more stories to finish. So that should be coming out in midsummer, the next volume of short stories. And I am having fun writing those at the moment. But of course, like whenever I sit down to write, I either fall asleep or I get distracted. But yes, I'm determined to actually. Monday morning, I'm going back to writing short stories because next week I have to finish these short stories.
All right.
So I need to bash myself around and just realize I'm writing. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just going to do writing next week, which is fun and challenging and all the things that come up whenever I'm writing stuff.
Of course, especially at home, right? There's always something to do or someone wants to talk to you.
Yeah. Or there's green party stuff.
These annoying people on the Clive Barker podcast keeping you from.
No. I embrace you both and all your audience. I love you.
But you brought up a great point because you are also very actively involved in politics, and you are currently getting involved with the Green Party, especially with some of the petitions that you just posted today here, a petition to please ban fossil fuel advertising and sponsorship. This is a petition for the UK government and parliament. So I would love to put this on our show notes as well, so people in the UK can also read and sign their name on this petition.
Well, unfortunately, that one's gone.
And
the government, curse them, have because that one has actually gone by. But there are plenty of things that people can be doing. There are plenty of other petitions out there because they say, I love it. It's the usual government response to things. It's like, we're doing lots about the climate. We're doing lots about the climate. But banning advertising of fossil fuels isn't one of the things that we're thinking about doing. I think, well, why not? Why not? Because you banned advertising of cigarettes.
And it went down. Yeah.
Because you were concerned about the health effects and so on. Why not that? And, there was a bit, you make a lot of money out of the tax on cigarettes, but you still banned advertising. When I say you, it wasn't necessarily this government, it wasn't this political party that did it. But the point is that we need to do something, and I do occasionally share stuff if I really think it's something that's. But I think I was this morning. Have you heard of Batten in Switzerland?
I think so.
You may not have done. Okay, so this happened on Wednesday morning. There's an entire village of 300 people were wiped out.
I did hear about that. Yes.
Unfortunately, they think they've only lost one person.
That's what I'd heard.
Yeah, but because they'd evacuated the cows, they literally airlifted and cars. They'd literally lifted because this is in the high Alps.
Right.
But
Swiss Alps.
When you look, Swiss Alps, absolutely. But this village is gone. The hotel, the church, the homes have gone, and those that escaped the actual landslide, which was made up, then got flooded because because the villages tend to be in the bottom of valleys, and of course they tend to be carved by rivers, so there's always a river at the bottom of the valley, and when you put in a whole load of soil, it creates lakes and then floods stuff and so on. The worrying thing is, and this is what scientists have been saying, is the fact that the reason that this is happening, the glaciers on the mountains are really important because those are what provide water to a lot of Europe. in all the mountains and the ranges of Europe is that the water flows from the glaciers, and the glaciers,
Right.
the water freezes in winter and then it's released during spring and summer, and that's how you get agriculture and so on, and that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have tremendous droughts in Europe, Spain, Italy particularly. And one of the problems and one of the things is people think of mountains as large lumps of rock. And what I had not realized is actually those mountains you look and you think are not necessarily just huge things of granite. They're actually huge bits of granite that are actually held together with permafrost.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, deep frost within the soil. You must be aware of permafrost up in Alaska. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge
Yeah.
part of our life here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
huge part of your life, and have the same problem they do in Siberia and the rest. So this stuff is not now melting. The permafrost is melting. Therefore, the sides of the mountains, which you think of as big rocks, but are less big rock, are more than just big rocks. They are made up of.
They're kind of
This-
spongy and filter
Yeah,
water,
absolutely.
and there's
Yeah,
layers
and
and
it's-
aquifers and stuff like
Yeah.
that going
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah, and we've known the glaciers are going back, and they've been melting in the rain, etc., etc., etc. And this is, one of the reports is saying, so basically what we're saying is if the world's mean temperature goes above 1.5 degrees, you can say goodbye to all those mountain villages in
Mhm.
Switzerland. Because because this is going to happen again and again. They were saying
Yeah.
they had evacuated the town because they think we better do it. We don't think anything's really going to happen, but listen, we'll just be on the safe side. And then it's kind of like, oh shit, this
Yeah.
actually happened. And this is, all the reports and the scientists who've done all the monitoring, thank heavens. The thing, we were not expecting this. We thought they knew stuff was going to move, but they had expected it to move more slowly. Because there tends to be that kind of stuff going on all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm incredibly, and the reason I joined the Globe, one of my sayings is the moment is think global, act local.
Right.
And I was watching a YouTube, and I highly recommend to you, if you have any interest in the climate, there are an awful lot of very good YouTube channels, one of which I recommend is Simon Clark. Another one is a channel called Just Have a Think. And it's remarkable on YouTube because there are no adverts. And Dave Borlace, the guy who's been running this, and Just Have a Think has been, and I'm going to try and get this. Whilst I'm talking to you, I think this is important. I'm going to bring up my browser because
Of course.
I want to see if I can actually get the.
And I know that Britain is trying to push to get to net zero, low carbon future. So that's especially for a place like England, which is an island with finite resources. I think that's very important to have that insight into the future.
Yes. So I recommend if anyone now, young people probably will know. Have you ever heard of a band called AJR?
Mm-mm.
Apparently they're terribly, terribly famous and millions and so on. There's three brothers. But one of the brothers is a guy called Adam Met. And it literally dropped and just have a drink. Just have a think. Just have a drink. Just have a think drops on Sundays.
Okay.
It is the most. He was talking to this young guy. It's very seldom he does an interview in full, but this was really interesting because there is a book called Amplify by Adam Met, which is coming out recently. I've just pre-ordered it. It's coming out in the next day or so. What Adam Met is saying, the message to young people is, yes, the whole overall, when politicians who say, are very proudly saying, we're going to save all this money by scrapping net zero and et cetera, et cetera. He was saying, just get involved in local politics.
Yeah.
You can do something locally. Vote for your local council person, vote for your in your local elections, get involved in because actually there you are making it, because then you can make a real change to the people in your environment.
Yeah.
Your family, your friends, where you live. These are all run by local forms of government.
Yeah.
Getting involved, and it's interesting, and so yeah, it's been an absolutely fascinating process. I was at a Green Party London regional conference with and there was a Muslim speaker, a really fascinating guy from up in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Who, when he won a by-election. This is an election that happens between elections, local council, not general election, local tier of government.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd run a recent election. And because he is a Muslim, he thanked everybody. And I won't say the phrase because I'm scared of getting it wrong, but basically he thanked Allah in the way that many people do. Which, as he says, to him is like shaking somebody's hand. It's like saying bless you when somebody sneezes. It's just a thing you say.
Yeah.
Elon Musk found this clip.
Yes.
Retweeted it saying the Green Party want to overthrow the government and install Muslims to run the UK Parliament.
That is a man who's been radicalized, and being a billionaire, it's just ridiculous the amount of the big megaphone that he's got. It's just to amplify what? To amplify someone who's been radicalized by Twitter. It just seems so.
There is something ridiculous. Wrong that one person can be worth $300 billion.
Of course.
There is something.
It is perverse in a way.
Wrong
with
that. Don't have to be a socialist to believe that.
No.
You can still be a capitalist and believe, and I know the whole capitalist lies, yes, but that could be you if you work hard enough. And that is a lie, because it's to do with opportunity and your education and your family background, as to whether or not you actually have those opportunities, as much as anything. And actually your personality and also your family circumstances, to whether or not you might be I won't go on. But yes, just have a think. I really do. And so I think this is one that I'm so passionate about Green Party, because although it is really hard to tackle, though I'm so proud of the young people who are taking governments and states to court to say, you've got to do something about climate change. You've actually, because this is our future.
And the real power is not in having $300 billion. The real power is what Adam Met is talking about, how to use the power of connection to engage, take action, and build a better world. That is the real power, the power of the people. It's not the power of some guy sitting in his gilded triplex, forcing his point of view on the world. That's not freedom. That's not democracy. That's just plutocracy. And plutocracy doesn't think in long terms, right? It doesn't think in like, what are the next generations gonna inherit from us? Plutocracy only cares about how is this going to benefit me while I'm still here. That's all they care about.
Yes, and how much power, how much money, and it's like you'll never be able to spend $300 billion in your lifetime or anyone's lifetime. It's whatever you think about Bill Gates and some of the stuff, you have to admire a man who's saying, I've made all this money, but now I'm determined to give it away. Now I'm determined to do some good. Now, there are contra arguments to what, I'm not talking about putting microchips in insulation. Oh, God. None of all that crap. I'm talking about the attitudes to family planning, etc. I know there are people who are not huge fans of Bill Gates, but there are people who are proper philanthropists.
I think for him that took some convincing, though, right, by his ex-wife.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. But then
yeah,
we all have better halves. We all, that's,
yeah,
that's why we have, we talk about friendship and family and getting together and so on.
On the subject of returning to writing,
Apart from anything else, it'll make Clive shut up and stop him nagging me.
Does he nag you to write?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
In the kindest, friendliest, most loving way.
Yeah.
I am Joshua when I use the term nagging.
Yeah.
Clive encourages me to write, and I really want to celebrate that, and I really do enjoy it. When it's going well, when it's not going well, I don't enjoy it at all. But it's that's what. So I don't think so.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the next third volume of stories.
Yeah. And acting when the opportunity. I did a really lovely job a few months back called The Death of Us, which I hopefully will come out later this year. And recently there was, and in fact, at the end of last year, there were 3 films that came out.
Amanda, correct?
Say again?
Amanda?
Not Amanda.
Or How to Kill Monsters was 2023, right?
How to Kill Monsters.
Wait, is that a sequel to? I haven't seen it yet. Is that a sequel to Book of Monsters?
No, it's a different. It's a different world.
It's a
world. Similar cast. Lindsay starring again. Daniel Thrace is there. It's hilarious. And
I'll have to see that. I loved Book of Monsters. So if it's similar production and everything, I'll have to check that out.
And I believe it's available on Prime, but I can't remember if it's available on Prime in the USA. But it's definitely available on Prime. And if you go to Dark Rift Horror, then you'll know where the streaming platforms are for How to Kill Monsters.
Right. And then you did Advent, where you played Richard Hill. Yeah.
Yes. And that was fun, and I was really pleased with that one. And there was He Sees You When You're Sleeping, Charlie Steeds. That came out. So 3 came out within about a week of each other.
Is that a holiday horror movie?
It is a holiday horror movie. It is
wonderful. I love that stuff.
It's a Christmas one. I've not actually watched it, come to think of it. I know I had a great deal of fun on the day doing it, but I've not actually sat down and watched it yet. I really should. Charlie's a great director and really interesting career, and produces and is always working and always making films and does some really fun stuff. So hopefully doing some more acting as and when.
What you'd said about local politics, that affects me a lot. Nowadays I'm a deputy tax assessor. And so that has local politicians have a huge impact on me and what I do, because I'm, my department is a constant subject of trying to, just a couple of weeks ago, I had to go to them all the way until midnight defending our department and them trying to cut people's positions and stuff. And,
that's hard.
It's very hard. And this whole,
Well, we're looking forward to that 3rd book of short stories. We would love to have you back whenever that is ready to come out.
Review copies. Yes, you get review copies. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
We would love to have
that would be great. Yeah. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Good.
Thank you,
guys.
Nick.
Yeah. Coming next, we're going to have the finale of the Jericho Squad 77 D&D game. Some more breaking news from the Reef, news episodes, and episode 500. So stay tuned. And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed or followed our podcast. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that's not affiliated with Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Reddit, Blue Sky, or our Discord server. Have you already bought our book? The BarkerCast Interviews Occupy Midian, available in Amazon hardcover, Kindle, and Apple Books. Join our Patreon and become a patron to get access to exclusive stuff, pick an episode topic, or maybe join in the discussion. You can also buy a t-shirt in our TeePublic store. Just go to teepublic.com/stores/BarkerCast. Leave a voicemail for us on the SpeakPipe link on our blog and we might put it in the episode. Opening and ending music generously provided by Ray Norrish.
Thanks for listening.